Welcome back to Beyond Sports. Well, that was another great edition of Nuggets Now, but I'm very excited for our next segment of Nuggets Knowledge. So for our listeners out there who have not done a Nuggets Knowledge segment with us, Bob and I are essentially going to try and guess a player based on their stats. So this week, it's my turn to try and stump my co-host Bob here. We're going to be listing off some stats. What Bob's going to try and do is he gets one guess to see who that player is going to be. If he's wrong, well, we're keeping score somewhere. But either way, it's going to be exciting, and then we're going to try and place them in Nuggets all-time history and then NBA all-time history. So just trying to place their place in history, if you will. So
yeah, I'm still up one, but neither of us have missed in quite some time. So
Bob's keeping score, and I'm not keeping score. Let's just say it that way.
Still up one.
Yeah. Well. We'll see after today. I think I could stump you with this one. He's a notable player, but also kind of under the radar. So we'll see who we've got here. So I've got some stats pulled up for you. We'll see if I can't get you. So this guy actually is a pretty interesting story. Nothing super crazy, but just one of those really tough grit and grind careers just right out of the gate. So this player went undrafted in the NBA when he was eligible.
Okay.
Tried to get drafted, didn't succeed. Went to the Chinese league.
Okay.
Played for them for like half a year, and then kind of made his way to the semi-pros, and then eventually the D League. And this was over the span of about a 2-year span of time. So pretty tough span of time. Went through about 5 to 6 different semi-pro to D League teams. Then he gets signed by the Denver Nuggets. So right out of the gate from the D League, gets signed by the Denver Nuggets. First D League player to be called up and signed by an NBA team at that time from the D League. Very interesting information. Did not know that about this player. So really like that story. I did not know this guy went undrafted. So kind of interesting just to hear that whole story. But so he played, the 2 years of semi-pro ball, then played for the Nuggets for 4 seasons. Just kind of going through some of his short-term career stats here. Went to the Hornets for about 3 seasons, then back to the Nuggets for another 4 seasons. Now, he has played for some other teams, but we'll get to that later. He did win 1 NBA championship, so one-time NBA champion. One of his better seasons with the Nuggets, he was second in the league in blocks per game. And in that same...
For just one season.
Just
right?
one season.
Okay.
Just one season. And then for that same season, finished 9th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, 12th in Most Improved, and 8th in Sixth Man of the Year. In 7 total seasons with the Nuggets, he averaged 5.1 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 1.7 blocks per game. And then finishing up with our last couple of stats here, career 4.4 points per game, 1.4 blocks per game, 5 rebounds per game. So pretty consistent when it comes to that. And then played 10 seasons in the NBA total.
Okay.
Kind of a journeyman, but obviously 7 seasons with the Nuggets. Kind of one of our more long tenured players on the team comparatively for a lot of these guys that we bring up. It seems like most of the more notable guys are like 4 to 5 years. So 7 total seasons with the Nuggets. So that's all the stats I got for you, Bob. Do you have a guess in mind?
Yes, I knew this from the very first one. It's Chris Anderson.
It is
the Birdman.
It is Birdman, Chris Anderson. What gave it away?
China League. I knew that he played in China before he got drafted.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
I didn't know he was the first player that got called up by a D League team.
I did not know that either.
Pretty cool.
And his 2-year ban from the NBA.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting as well. But I know all the Nuggets fans out there love Birdman. 7 seasons with the team. I would say, his time with Miami Heat was moderately iconic for him, but his time in the Nuggets was really when he came into his own, I think. And then, he kind of got his championship with the Heat, but his home was always the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Whenever I thought about Chris Anderson, I always thought of him on the Nuggets.
Yeah, I do and I don't, because growing up, whenever I was playing 2K and all that stuff, I do remember playing as him on the Nuggets, and he was awesome.
Yeah.
However, he did beat the Pacers on the Heat and had that moment with Tyler Hansbrough and got dunked on by Paul George.
I was about to say that Paul George dunk.
Yeah.
Probably the best dunk of his career.
Definitely the best dunk of his career. And that I kind of those are definitely the two teams I remember him most from.
Yeah, I would absolutely say so for sure. I didn't remember him being on the Hornets for that long.
I didn't either.
So that was the Charlotte Hornets, not the New Orleans ones. But still, very, very odd. I don't remember that time very well.
I think that might be backwards. I think it was the New Orleans Hornets with Chris Paul, and because Charlotte didn't take over the Hornets till a few years ago.
So I just think this player overall is very interesting when it comes to Nuggets history. For me, I think it's hard to place somebody like this because we've run into a guy like this before, and I think it's Kenneth Faried when it comes to just that notability on the Nuggets team. But when you look at actual production, it's just not there.
The mohawk, the tattoos.
Yeah, he had it all.
Yeah.
But actual stats. Like, that was the only
Not that
thing
great.
he was lacking.
Yeah.
He had a decent season, but 5.1 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 1.7 blocks. I mean, the defensive side, especially at that time when you relied a little
solid.
more on specialists. I feel like the NBA now, everyone can kind of do everything, and you just kind of fill specialists in. But back then, it was kind of like you had three guys who could do mostly everything, and you needed a lot more of those specialist players. But I don't know where I'd place him in Denver Nuggets history because I want to give him a high level, but it's kind of hard to.
I don't even know if I could put him in top 50. I mean,
I was going to say top 100 out of respect. I think the average Nuggets fan and the average NBA fan even knows Chris Anderson from his time in Denver.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And 7 seasons in Denver is a long time, especially for...
Yeah. That's one of the longest tenured people we've brought up.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems the average is 5 or less. I mean, I can't
Typically,
remember a player more than 5. So, I don't know. 75? Will we feel comfortable with the 75?
I feel comfortable with 75 with the caveat that we can move him up if we end up realizing we messed up.
I don't know, though, from a statistical perspective.
We would need about 56 more episodes of Nuggets knowledge, though, to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I think for now, 75 is going to be appropriate.
I feel like that's fair.
I love Chris Anderson. I want our listeners to understand I love Birdman. I don't think he is a bad basketball player. I just don't think his hype level equated to what he actually did on the court.
No.
And he was kind of his stats don't always reflect his impact
100%.
kind of guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, those are some pretty low stats.
Yeah. I mean, he had the look.
You can't justify much more. You can't.
But outside of that,
he's a Denver icon.
Yeah.
We'll give him that. Definitely an icon. But now we expand out to the NBA, and I think this one's very difficult.
Super tough.
Because we're talking about, again, kind of almost the same exact stats, 5.4 career, 5 rebounds for a career, 1.4 blocks. Now, over the span of 10 seasons, as somebody who started out in the D-League, especially being one of the first players to be called up to the NBA, I think that's impressive, given where he started and how he got into the NBA. I think being able to do those stats for 10 straight seasons, because if you look at his stats, it's pretty much every single year that's what he did. I think his highest points per game total was 6.5.
Yeah.
And I always thought he was way better than that. And it was kind of crazy to see the stats actually play out like that.
Well,
So
I was scoring 15 points per game with him in 2K, so
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. But the question remains, where will we place him all time? Now, I think one of the only things that gives him any real standing outside of just being some guy is being an NBA champion. And I think also being with one singular team for 7 seasons is somewhat worth consideration, considering who we're going to be comparing him to. Because at this point, we're comparing him to like low bench rotation players.
So there's around 4,400 players that have ever played in the NBA.
Right.
I wouldn't put him in the top 75% of those.
So you wouldn't give him over 3,000? An NBA champion?
Yeah, but LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Ray Allen.
I get it.
Mike
I
Miller,
understand.
Like
they had a crazy team.
Yeah.
and they were destined to win. The NBA wanted them to win. I get all that, but again, we both thought he was better. Like we can't even sit there and say he's not a bad player.
I don't think he's necessarily a bad player.
He's
I think
probably the most notable
out.
5-and-5 guy ever.
Yeah, that's
Like,
probably true.
I couldn't name another one from that same time period.
I think he stands out because of the look in his play style. Like he was always hard nosed. He was always getting in the
It's very
scraps.
explosive.
Yeah, and he was just never afraid to, I don't know, stand up for himself or his teammates.
All right,
And I
so
think
out of
that
respect,
kinda showed.
let's do Mr. 3000.
I can deal with.
let's
that.
give
I
him
can
that.
deal with 3,000.
Let's give him that.
All right, 3,000 to this.
This has been Nuggets Knowledge with Beyond Sports. Follow us on social media at Beyond Sports 5280. Be sure to call in, text the show at 720-446-8463. If you've got a player in mind you want us to spotlight for Nuggets Knowledge, we're always looking for ideas, so give us a call. We are going to be back with an interview with Miss Black, Colorado after this break. Tune in shortly after this.